Rhode Island Democrat Sheldon Whitehouse sits on the Budget and Judiciary Committee. Senator Whitehouse, thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you, Savannah.
All right, so my first question to you is that Republicans say they support unemployment benefits too. They just don't want it to add to the deficit. The counter to that, of course, from the White House is that these unemployment benefits are always extended via emergency spending, so it's okay to add to the deficit. At what point does unemployment, which has been going on for years at this high level, cease to be an emergency? At what point do you guys have to start budgeting for it?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it ceased to be an emergency when 71,000 families in Rhode Island get back to work. There are just nowhere near that number of jobs available to them, and for those families, it is sure as heck an emergency.
Well, right, but we're talking about a budget issue. I mean, the emergency spending is a term of art on Capitol Hill, I don't have to tell you, that allows the government to spend without subsequent offsets to balance the budget out. Do you think
things like unemployment insurance are probably the last things that should go? It is countercyclical. It provides immediate energy into the economy because people spend it right away. And certainly by comparison with tax cuts for CEOs and other of the wealthiest Americans, it's far more important and far more justified and costs really a pittance compared to what the Republicans are trying to do to the debt and to the deficit with their tax cuts for the richest Americans.
Senator, I want to play for you a clip from Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell on this issue. Take a listen.
At what point do we pivot and start being concerned about our children and our grandchildren? There is no way in the world in a $1 trillion budget this year we can't find the money to pay for an extension of unemployment insurance, something we're in favor of. If you can't pay for a program that everybody agrees we ought to extend, what are we going to pay for?
So to take Senator McConnell at his word on this issue, if the two parties agree on doing something, it's on one spending issue, but can't figure out a way to pay for it on something like this, then how do we expect you guys to ever deal with the deficit issue on either side, honestly, on either side?
Well, first of all, I agree that we need to pivot to the deficit issue once states like Rhode Island are down from 12.3% unemployment. And that is an important task. It's a task the Democrats have accomplished before under President Clinton. And unfortunately, we'll have to clean up the $9 trillion Bush debt and do it again, and we will. But in the meantime, to make working class Americans, hardworking families who are out of jobs through no fault of their own, have to go off their only lifeline now, their only economic lifeline, just doesn't seem to be justifiable, particularly when the argument is coming from Republicans who want to add far more to the deficit to provide the super wealthy with additional tax cuts. It just doesn't make sense. Does there have to be a pivot? Yes. But this isn't the fulcrum to pivot on. It's just wrong.
I understand this. And I know the argument against Republicans in this, well, they're being hypocritical because, you know, now they seem to care about it and they haven't cared about the deficit before. But it seems like both parties have this habit of when they want to make the other side uncomfortable, they bring up the deficit. You know, you'll have some people who are against the war in Afghanistan say, well, we need to find budget offsets to do that. And it's almost as if both sides use the deficit as a political ploy to attack the other side rather than actually dealing with the deficit.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some of that, and certainly that's going to be the case during the hiatus between now and when the President's Deficit Commission issues its report, which I think is really the point at which we have to pivot. But I just say that, you know, yes, there's going to be some political back and forth, but behind the political back and forth are real families who are having to sit down at the kitchen table at night while the kids are upstairs in bed and figure out what they're going to tell the kids the next day about having to leave the house, about having to explain why they can't buy shoes, about having to make really hard choices. And this just isn't the time to put unemployed families, unemployed through no fault of their own, through this when the pivot will come. It will come as a result of the President's Deficit Commission. And frankly, it's the Democratic Party and Democratic presidents who can be trusted to actually do this stuff.